I'm Brandi. Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, being part of a minority group does not mean you're immune from criticism. Also,
within anything, you can find a diversity of opinion.
Yeah.
The question is, how do we deal with that diversity of opinion? Do we instantly shut it down?
Alums of a local school district are pushing back against the erasure of their beloved mascot with help from a local tribe. And an election debrief with the new chair of the Washington State Republican Party. That and more coming up today on Undivided. You can support the show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. Hello and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. A jam-packed show for you today. A lot of great stories to get to and a lot of frustrating stories to get to, frankly. But the first story and interview gives me so much hope for the direction that I think we're trying to move people in and out of this period where everything is offensive. Everyone finds a reason to be offended. Everyone's forced to apologize for things that they did that they didn't even think were wrong. And there has been a debate now for some time around high school mascots, which I think has really been at the center of this issue with woke gone too far, woke gone wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, we grow and we progress and as a society, and there are many things that we did 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago that are completely unacceptable today. And I think that we've become a society where we value people's feelings perhaps more than we once did, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to think and consider how other people might feel about something or about something you did or something you said. So that's sort of a general theme of the show today. But when it comes to high school mascots, you know, there is mascots that truly, maybe there's a good reason to be offended. I think the Washington Redskins was a good example of that and sort of how that might be perceived by Native Americans. But then there was this effort in 2021 in Washington to just wholesale push for the change of mascots and other things that had been named, maybe in honor of tribes, that were just going to say, okay, that's all offensive. There's no possible way you could name something after a tribe or after to honor Native Americans without it being offensive to people. And so you might recall that there were many school districts in Washington State that had to or decided to change their mascots. One of them was Shorewood High School in Shoreline. And the changing of that mascot is now subject to pushback by a group of alums. Let's get to it off the top. It's one of those days. Unbelievable. Off the top today. All right, so in 2021, as this was happening across the state, Shorewood High School, which is within the Shoreline School District, they had to have a conversation about their mascot, which some thought might be a little bit problematic. So I want to show you if you're watching on the show, the previous mascot, the longtime mascot for Shorewood High School, and the new mascot, that the process of which was changed around 2021. So they were the Thunderbirds. Nicole knows this well. And now they're the
Storm Rays.
What is a storm ray? Is it a
thunderbolt? No,
stingray?
It's a stingray, but storm because
ray?
We live in a stormy area.
So they went from the Thunderbirds, which was sort of this majestic bird-like logo, to the Shorewood Storm Rays. This is just a weird mascot. They're really trying too hard with that one. And it's got kind of a thunderbolt through the S and the W.
Which it always had that. That was part of the Thunderbird, right?
Yeah.
But now it's Storm Ray, so they kept the Thunderbird.
So they just sort of changed it a little bit. And look, you know, in my high school, we were the DGF Rebels, Dilworth, Glen and Felton Rebels. And they kept like the little rebel guy, but they made him look a little less Southern, if you know what I mean. A little more Union. So they didn't change it altogether.
We didn't have that problem with the Blaine Borderites. It's not that.
That's the name.
That's our mascot.
The name. That's just terrible.
The peace arch. Do you know what the peace arch is?
I know what the peace arch is, but a borderite.
That's our mascot. It doesn't have eyes or anything like that. Just the arch.
We got to get back to that. But back to
hair is all
Shorewood.
funky.
So just to remind you how all of this happened. So there was a law in 2021 that was passed that basically said, look, if your mascot has any sort of tie to Native Americans, then you've got to change it unless, and there were a few carve-outs in state law for that. For instance, if the school is located in a county that is adjacent to a county that contains all or part of a tribal reservation or tribal trust land, so you might be able to keep it. Or if the tribe that is consulted with and determines to authorize the use of the name, symbol, or image as a school mascot, logo, or team name, as provided in subsection 2 of this section, is the nearest federally recognized Indian tribe. So what does that mean in just layman's term? That means that if the nearest federally recognized Indian tribe to your school says it's okay, you can keep it. So that's a carve-out in state law, but I think that carve-out got lost in this wider conversation of, oh, it's just generally offensive to have any sort of tribute to Native Americans in any sort of way. But that didn't go over well with some alums of Shorewood High School because of the history of the Thunderbirds name. So it turns out that when Thunderbirds became the mascot for Shorewood High, it was done in consultation way back then with the nearest federally recognized tribe, which is the Suquamish tribe. So back when the Thunderbirds High School wanted to adopt the mascot, they did it in consultation with the closest federally recognized tribe, and the tribe was thrilled about it. The tribe saw it as a nod to them, as a nod to their history, as a nod to them being on that land first. So you fast forward then to 2021, and this law goes into effect, and you have the powers that be in the school district that say, well, I guess we just got to get rid of the Thunderbirds. The problem is they never reached out, it turns out. They never consulted with the Suquamish tribe to ask them, do you want us to change the name? There's a carve-out in the law that says if you are okay with us keeping it, we can keep it. But the school, for whatever reason, didn't factor in whether the actual tribe found the mascot name to be offensive. So you know who went and sought the advice of the Suquamish tribe? The alumni group for Shorewood High School. A group of alums from all different generations went to the tribe and said, hey, Shorewood has changed the mascot from Thunderbirds to Storm Rays. Do you want that? Would you have been okay with Thunderbirds? And here's the glorious thing. The Suquamish tribe provided the alumni group with a letter saying, we don't want the old mascot to go away. It says, we, the Suquamish tribe, recently became aware of the change of the Shorewood High School mascot. The Suquamish tribe's ancestral lands encompass the Shoreline School District, including the area of Shorewood High School. We are your close neighbor just across the water at the Port Madison Indian Reservation. When Shorewood High School was established, the students, administration, and greater community worked together with tribal approval to establish the Thunderbird as the school's mascot. We believe that the use of the Thunderbird is appropriate and respectful. We also encourage future learning opportunities for your students and community to visit and learn more about the Suquamish tribe and culture by visiting our tribal museum. Please reach out to, and then it gives them contacts. So here you have, again, at the behest of alums who actually took the time to reach out to the closest federally recognized tribe, the tribe that gave them permission to use the Thunderbirds in the first place when the school was established. And the tribe believes so much that the continued use of that mascot is respectful to them, that it's a nod to them, that they've now sent the school district a letter saying, hey, we would like and we're okay if you continue to use Thunderbird, although the school had already gone back and changed it to the Storm Rays. I always have to look at Nicole because it sounds so silly that I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly, the Storm Rays. So anyway, now you have these alums who are fighting to get the school district to reconsider, who are fighting to get the school district to see reason and say, look, not everything has to be offensive. Sometimes we can have difficult conversations about these things. We can include stakeholders, and we can come to the realization that this actually could be something that is respectful, that teaches us about this tribe, that teaches the students about this tribe. So there is a school board meeting tonight where there are going to be some alums present to present this letter from the Suquamish tribe to the school board to see if they might be willing to reconsider. We spoke with Anna Deleganis, who is the Shorewood Alumni Group representative, about why they are so passionate about the school district giving this a second look. Anna, welcome to Undivided. What year did you graduate Shorewood?
Shorewood, class of 1986.
1986. Go Thunderbirds, right? Or maybe not so much.
Yeah, it's been a little difficult road the last couple of years, that's for sure. There's still a lot of Thunderbird pride in the community, but obviously there's been some speed bumps. As an alumni group, though, we've been making some serious progress on learning about kind of what the basis for this change in the mascot has been. And actually, I've come to some conclusions that I think the school board erred in making the decision to remove the Thunderbird mascot.
Yeah, and before we get to some of those conclusions that you've made, and some of them are pretty fascinating, because it seems like there's a carve out in state law that would have allowed Shorewood to keep this mascot in place. But do you feel like it's just too late? You know, the school has already spent money to change the name of the mascot, and that they're not going to wind it back.
You know, that's a great question. I think, and especially after you hear kind of what has happened along the way and what the carve out was, my conclusion in spending time on this is that it's really never too late to do the right thing. I think in terms of a change, it would have to be up to the community. One of the major portions of this would be educating students as to really what the history was of, in the first place, establishing the Thunderbird as the mascot. So intent, and how we, in 1976, the students came together with local tribes and chose the mascot as a way to honor local Native American tribes. And then also to learn about what happened in the whole process in 2021 when the decision was made by the school board to change the mascot. So I think if everyone has information and then comes together and discusses it in a free and open way, whatever decision is made at that point, I think at least then that the process, there would have been a process followed rather than what happened. Which was, you know, basically no effective speech around this whole issue. And I think that would be a much better way of coming to a community consensus, because there's a lot of Shorewood alumni in the community that felt very disenfranchised by this entire decision, and especially by the process. So,
and look, you know, I think when you say intent, that's spot on. You know, what is the intent? Look back, let's have an open dialogue about the intent, what happened. So the law that was passed has a carve out, and I read it a bit ago, but I'll read it again, that the name can stay if the tribe that is consulted with and determines to authorize the use of the name, symbol, or image as a school mascot, logo, or team name as provided in subsection 2 of this section is the nearest federally recognized Indian tribe. So it turns out that the nearest federally recognized Indian tribe not only did consult with the school in the use of this name, but today, my understanding, today would continue to be fine with the use of that name?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on. It's interesting because there was so much emotionality, I think, about the mascot change that I wonder how many people really did go back and read word for word the original bill. And you're doing it is spot on. It's kind of difficult language to follow, but basically there were two carve-outs for schools to consider. One being a very obvious one if the school is located on tribal lands, and that makes absolute sense. The second being if the school is adjacent to a tribal reservation where the majority of their lands are adjacent in the county adjacent, and they are your nearest federally recognized tribe, and that you consult with them and that they agree. So what happened in our case is that our nearest federally recognized tribe was not consulted in the 2021 mascot change. They did not consult the Suquamish tribe. They are by far our nearest tribe. They're located less than 10 miles from the school district. any other tribe is more than 20 or 30 miles away. And they were the ones that should have been consulted. And for the first time, just this small group of us reached out to them and told them the story and asked what they thought. And we were really kind of overwhelmed with their response, which was, yes, we would like you to remain the Thunderbird. We think the use of the mascot is appropriate. And if anything, we have within our tradition, they actually have a clan, a Thunderbird clan within the Suquamish tribe that felt very honored for having the Thunderbird mascot of the school. Again, getting at intent, our land is on lands that the tribe had a very, very close relationship with since time immemorial. And in some really important way, this does honor that. We're very lucky as a school to be close to them. And I think this is a great way both to honor them and also to open up the opportunity for learning more from a tribe that is living and thriving and this close to us. So I see this as a great opportunity, really.
How was that missed by the school district? Was it missed by an oversight? Was it missed intentionally, the opportunity to reach out to the tribe that actually this name was honoring?
Yeah, that's a great question, too. I can't completely speak for where they're coming from. I did have a meeting with the school superintendent. She indicated that she and the school board did consult with a couple of other tribes that they believed were assigned to us by the state. But as I said, they're not our nearest federally recognized tribes. So you didn't, the superintendent was quite intent on saying that they were following the letter of the law. And yet when I looked at the law, it's like, well, you consulted other tribes, but you didn't consult the one that we were supposed to. So I think that's my take home here is you have to read it very carefully and really follow it and not follow it to just the conclusion you're trying to get out of a process. I think, if you do that, then it's transparent and we all know what's going on. Otherwise, I think it kind of opens it up to saying, was there an agenda? What were you trying to do here? It becomes a little more obscured, I guess.
Is that what you feel, that maybe it was kind of tribe shopping? Like, let's find a tribe that agrees with us that this name needs to go?
I think the whole process was just really poorly done. From the get-go, I went back. I was not involved in 2021. I had a lot of other things going on. As you remember, we were still in a pandemic. I mean, our kids were barely going back to school at the time. There was a lot that people were just dealing with. And when it came up at a school board meeting, I kind of heard about it through the grapevine. And less than 6 weeks later, they voted on it and it was done. Again, it felt very rushed. It did not have a lot of community input. The students at the high school didn't know any of the original history. They were basically just told this is cultural appropriation. So of course, their knee-jerk reaction is going to be, well, we need to change this mascot. I mean, who wouldn't want to? I mean, once you've been told that that's what's going on. I think the reality of the situation is that we should have explained what the history was, should have honored the tribe by reaching out to them, asking their opinion, and then having it could be such a rich area for students to talk about, to debate, and to then come to an informed decision.
Do you think, and I'll talk about the meeting that's going to happen in case folks are interested, but there are some names of sports teams that are offensive. I mean, the Redskins, there are some that are just obviously like, okay, that's outdated, that needs to go. Do you think that maybe this is just the school district just not wanting to offend a single soul?
Yes, probably. It's, I think it is such an interesting topic because within anything, you can find a diversity of opinion. Yeah. The question is, how do we deal with that diversity of opinion? Do we instantly shut it down or do we have it as a discussion? And we have to be able to come to some sort of acknowledgement of differences of opinion in a multicultural society that are not canceling other people all the time. And I think in this case, people just wanted to get away from it very quickly and not look at what was the reason why we were named the Thunderbirds? What was the potential of us reconnecting with the Suquamish and what can we learn from them? Where can we go from here? It's very interesting because there was another high school kind of similar to us, Tumwater High School, also named the Thunderbirds. They're not on tribal lands either. They're in a county adjacent to the Nisqually tribe. And their school board reached out to the Nisqually, and they together agreed to keep the Thunderbird mascot.
Wow.
And now what has happened is there's actually a program between the Nisqually and the high school that's a new arts program that they're sharing together, which I just think is really, a fantastic, positive outcome, instead of this knee-jerk reaction of just assuming that anything we do is just, it's cultural appropriation. I just feel like that's not always what things are. You have to ask the question and learn, and having the discussion, which I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you about it.
Well, you're just so measured and common sense and rational and thoughtful in the way that you discuss it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. What is the plan for the alumni group to try to change this if that possibility exists?
Absolutely. I think our first step is tonight. There is a school board meeting. People from the public are welcome to come. I'll be honest, it's hard to physically get to school board meetings all of the time. I'll be going tonight and I'll be reading the letter from the Suquamish tribe into the public record and explaining a little bit about what we've done and to point out where I believe the error happened. I should also mention that we did a change.org petition in August. Just to see what was the level of community interest. We had over 1,000 signatures in 3 weeks, which was really pretty impressive because I'm not a PR person or a social media person, but it just went like wildfire. So I think there is a lot of interest and people are trying to figure out how to get involved and how to change things. I think the biggest way is to let the school board know. And one way you can do that without attending is there's a Google form you can fill out for online public comment that gets read at the school board meetings. The one for today is closed at noon, but there's going to be another school board meeting in December. And I think a couple of things, people can write in to the school board and let them know what they think. We've also started a big effort at trying to help students of the high school know what has happened. Again, they have the right to invite speakers. They have the right to get more information, and we'll provide that information as they would like to have it. And we also have connected with the Suquamish and plan to have a visit. So we're going to, regardless of what the outcome is, I'm determined that this have a positive outcome for students. And I'd like to establish some sort of a program where we can continue to learn from the tribe and to keep some sort of connection open with the tribe that I think would ultimately honor the spirit of why we were named the Thunderbird.
Yeah, and that's my conversation with Anna Deliganis, who I gotta say is I just loved her. And some of my favorite interviews on this show are just regular folks. And when we have like Alicia Perkins in from the Olympia School District and parents in Enumclaw pushing back against sex offenders in their communities, or someone like Anna, who's an alum, she's with the Shorewood alumni group, who's just, she's a couple decades removed from high school, but she believes in this issue. And I get the sense that for her, it's the same reason we're covering it. It's not about one high school and one mascot. It is about a broader conversation and trying to reel back in this really crazy period of time that we've been in where we're just too sensitive, too easily offended. And she's right. You ought to be able to bring these things forth, have a reasonable history-based kind, thoughtful conversation like she just engaged in there, and talk about, okay, are we really honoring the tribes when we do something like this? Shouldn't we, as opposed to being outraged on their behalf without even consulting them, shouldn't we have a conversation with them? And one of the things that she said in that interview that really struck me is it sounds like the school board went to other tribes, almost as if, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm not putting this on Anna, but almost as if they knew the answer they were going to get from the Suquamish. And so they just wanted to get rid of it to avoid offending anyone. So they tried to find a tribe that would agree with them that the name had to go, even though that wasn't the closest federally recognized tribe, which is what the law requires you to do. So very strange. And the other thing, and Nicole, I'll bring you in for this because you've been looking into the numbers, this also cost a lot of money.
A lot of money.
To change the mascot when it's clear that the mascot by law didn't have to be changed.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, there was that mascot picture that we were showing. That's a $5,000 costume for that mascot, and then all of the team uniforms, everything. So the state actually, if a school had to change their mascot, the state gave them $260,000, and they've blown through that. And then she says that there's about another $85,000 to $100,000 that they've spent of the school's money as they cut programs for students, but let's spend money on this. And I mean, I think you're being very kind in the way that you're phrasing it, as in they're trying to do something good. They want to honor whatever. But to me, I think that it shows the opposite. Is you're not, if you were trying to do something good, you would consult them, say, hey, we're doing this for you. But they obviously went around them because they were very involved with the mascot and naming the mascot, all of that. They went around them.
Well, I'm not
to find people. Well,
that's a mischaracterization of what I said. I mean, I'm not saying that they're trying to do something good by going around them. I'm saying that they knew the outcome they wanted, that they wanted to not offend anyone.
Well,
and I don't think that's necessarily good.
But that's what I mean, is that they don't want, it's not that they didn't want to offend anybody. They wanted this, I believe that it's a show, right? Like, oh, look how great we are that we would do this proactively. And we don't, we're doing this to show that we're good. It's like doing something and not expecting something.
They wanted to virtue signal.
It's a virtue signal. And I think that they absolutely, I mean, there's no reason to go around this tribe.
Yeah.
They were closest. It only makes sense to go to them, but they went to Tulalip and Snoqualmie and use they just said, hey, do you mind if we change it? It sounds like.
And they're like,
and,
I guess.
And we're trying to get some of those documents that exactly what they had these conversations about, and if it was, why do you think this is offensive? Share with us the reason that we should change it or anything like that. But it sounds like she's put in some record requests that have not been returned yet, and it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
So we're waiting on more documentation, but it definitely sounds like they wanted to change it. They found a way to do it.
100%.
And we're given a bunch of money to do it. So
100%.
they got new uniforms, they got new paintings, they got new all of that stuff. So.
Yeah, and you also have to consider how many other school districts were in a similar situation where they wanted to virtue signal and maybe didn't even consult the nearest tribe. Maybe didn't even consult. In this case, it's not just about being the nearest tribe in proximity. It's about being the tribe that helped name the mascot in the first place.
Right.
It makes it that much more egregious that they wouldn't go back to them.
Right.
When there was an opportunity under state law for them to say, no, keep it. We like it. And they just said, no.
We want to spend the money.
We want to spend the money.
And also, you're going to tell me you're starting every, assembly or whatever it is with a land pledge to the tribes that own the land that you're on, which is the closest tribe probably to your land. But then you don't consult them when you're going to make this huge change that they were involved with naming in the first place. Like if there was no involvement, we didn't even know that tribe was down the street. Whoops, that would be one thing. But these people were involved in their mascot in the first place.
Yeah, you want to talk about offending the tribe. I think removing the name that the tribe wanted in the first place is way more offensive than Thunderbirds. I mean, that makes no sense. So it's virtue signaling gone awry. And good on these former students, parents, for just saying, and this is I would say Seattle, it's close enough, where it's like good for them for saying, look, we're progressive people. We don't want to hurt feelings. We recognize that we're on land that was originally native land, but also this is absurd and a waste of money and actually isn't honoring anyone.
Yes.
I love them.
I think
love
it
them
all
for this.
has an underlying intention that we're acting like we care when really you're teaching kids the wrong lesson there.
Yep. So we will be watching the meeting. We'll have a little update tomorrow on how the meeting goes. But I just thought Anna was so great and so measured. And there's a larger lesson here. And speaking of the larger theme of the show, I said, people are easily offended. Anna, welcome to Undivided. What year did you graduate, Shorewood? Nicole, every time.
Shorewood, class of 1980.
Anyway, there she is again.
There's a larger theme to today's episode, and that really is that people are way too easily offended. And apparently I offended some people on social media last night, so I'm going to address that.
No, you didn't. They're just acting offended.
Listen, Stop interrupting
You got me all
me.
riled up today. I don't know why.
Oh, I was getting there. Apparently, I offended some people online. But if you think my segment is going to end in an apology, you would be mistaken. Before we get to that, I've been talking about First Mark Insurance and the First Mark Challenge. Mike and I took the First Mark Challenge in the spring. And, I've been encouraging you to take it. But one of the things I've been saying is this isn't give us 15 minutes and we'll get you better insurance for a lower price or something. No, this is a process. These are professionals. They've been doing this for a long time, and it takes time. It took time for Mike and I to have a virtual meeting with them, to do the First Mark Challenge, to talk to them about our current insurance, to go over our insurance needs, for them to go out, shop the market for us for free, and then come back to us and present their findings. Dave Taylor is the CEO of First Mark, and we talked about sort of that time investment on the front end.
How much time did it take for you?
Couple hours.
Okay, so
Total.
all in a couple hours.
Yep.
From the time we gather the information, do the presentation, and go through everything, it's a couple hours of time, right? And I would say that's probably on the high end.
Yeah.
Right. It
well,
ranges.
We were chatty. We were very chatty.
We were chatty. Yes, exactly. Anywhere from an hour to 2 hours is the investment in time to find out, and there's no obligation. There's no extra fees if you become a First Mark client. We are paid the same way every other insurance agency in the state of Washington is paid. We're paid by the insurance company that is the writer of your business, and so there's nothing to lose.
Yeah, nothing to lose. And we've heard from people who watch the show who First Mark actually told them the insurance you have right now is pretty good. I wouldn't recommend changing. And so they learned that. They had a little peace of mind that they had the best insurance that they could have. And so that's part of the process as well. So if you haven't set aside a little time, there's really nothing to lose. FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. Sign up to take the First Mark Challenge. And remember, the best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies, and you never pay them a dime. All right. I found myself in a little online drama, as I typically do, but I think this is, again, a lesson in people are always going to find a reason to be offended, and they are always going to find a reason to try to dismiss legitimate criticism when it goes against what they believe ideologically. There's this really tried and true tactic that we see a lot in Seattle, particularly on the Seattle City Council. Shama Sawant has pulled this out of her playbook many times, and that's if you criticize her, then you must be a racist because you're criticizing a woman of color. And as a journalist, I've heard this not infrequently in my career. It's like if you criticize anyone who's in a minority community, be it a woman, a politician, for instance, someone of color, then you're criticizing them not based on their words and their actions, but based on an immutable characteristic, which is ridiculous. But the reason they do that is they're hoping that you are such a coward that by virtue of being called a name, you're going to back off. And I think as a journalist, it was our job not to back off. I think for other people who aren't used to that level of scrutiny, it might be easier just to be like, oh, well, I don't want to be called a racist or a transphobe or whatever it is, so I'm just going to back away. And that's what we're trying to sort of train out of people is like, no, you don't have to back off if you're levying a legitimate criticism, and you certainly don't have to apologize. So anyway, last week on the show, I talked about one of the Olympia School Board races. Why don't we just give people the latest results since we're at it? So Jess Turtelot-Palumbo handily beat Frank Drozier, 59% to 41%. And in a segment on the show late last week, I had said this race went kind of under the radar. We didn't talk about it a lot because we were so focused on a different candidate, Talana Reed, in a different seat, who's running for a different seat, who'd said all these crazy things about cops. And so Jess Turtelot-Palumbo isn't a candidate we had focused on a lot. So I took an opportunity on the show last week to introduce folks to who will be one of the newest members of the Olympia School Board. Here is a clip. I want to replay it because this is what people got upset online about. Here's a clip from my segment last week. I want you to meet what will probably be the Olympia School Board's newest member.
And there's been a lot of conversation about safety and about SROs being put back into schools and taking the words police and renaming them into around engagement, around collaboration and public safety. That's not an interesting idea at all. That's an idea that I feel like is creating space for white folks to feel safe or to feel good about doing something about the racism within law enforcement. And it doesn't take away from the fact that law enforcement and SROs come from the seed of racism. And you can rename them something, and you can try to create different branches, but if that seed is still there, it's going to create the same problem. And that same problem is going to tell our students who are marginalized, who have disabilities, who come from the BIPOC community, that their safety is less important, that they don't matter. And we are going to cause fear.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that, Nicole? Listen closely. Do you hear it? That's the sound of me dying a little bit inside. Why indeed? So that was part of the segment I did last week on Jess Turtelot Palumbo. And anyone who watches this show knows exactly why I was dying a little bit inside. It's because the Olympia School District has just put another person on that board who believes that cops are irredeemable racists and that their mere presence inside a school is inherently offensive and triggering to students who aren't white. It's absurd. And in the context of the longer segment in the coverage that we did of the Olympia School District, it is along the lines of what has already been happening on that school board as they double down on focusing on political and social issues, as they're constantly offended over whatever comes up, and they're not focusing on the education of kids. So anyone who actually watches the show and is a fan of the show certainly knows that I was talking about and reacting to the insanity of what Jess Turtelot Palumbo said in that social media video. But according to some activists on the internet, I was not criticizing her extreme ideology and her extreme position on police. I was, in fact, criticizing her disability. Well, I didn't know she had a disability. Now I know. Apparently, Jess Turtelot Palumbo suffers from cerebral palsy, which I have no idea. So I don't really think that you can mock someone's disability when you don't know they have a disability. But anyway, so there were some activists. There were various posts like this. This one says it's aiming at Frank DeRozier, again, who lost to Jess Turtelot Palumbo in the race. I would hope that Frank would renounce Brandi mocking Jess for her disability and separate himself from any statements like that. Basically goes on to say that the video was so disgusting, they could barely watch it. Brandi's words are disgusting and do not reflect anyway. So you get the gist. So it was this storm of activists who were saying, and on my page and their own pages, saying that I was on this show mocking this school board candidate because she has cerebral palsy. Which, again, if you watch the show, if you know me, is absolutely absurd. There was plenty to mock about the words that she used to describe police officers. There is no need, nor would I ever mock someone who has a disability for their disability, although I just learned that she had one. So anyway, I had posted this on my Facebook page, and who responds? Jess Turtelot Palumbo. And she was actually a little more kind about it than the actual activists were. She said, Brandi, I think it's more due to the comments, so referring to comments people left on the video. Many state that they believe I am drunk, which I get often because of my speech. I do have cerebral palsy. I have never met you or spoken to you on this topic. I'm open to dialogue. Sometimes it's hard to get all of one's thoughts conveyed in a video. If you want to know more, please contact me. Thanks. And we are reaching out, right? But here's the thing. There's all these, and the reason why I'm bringing this up today is not because I'm not used to having some activists or just individuals who dislike me and dislike what I have to say and my opinions come after me online. No, it's because these very same activists, the very, very same activists, are the ones who pushed so hard against the sheriff in Thurston County, Derek Sanders, that he rescinded his endorsement of Frank DeRozier. Do you remember that? We covered it on the show. He just basically was like, I'm not going to deal with this. They were calling Frank DeRozier a transphobe, and so they went to Derek Sanders. They're tagging him on social media. They're coming after him, just like they're doing to me right now, and they're telling him, oh, Frank's a transphobe. Are you going to rescind your endorsement? Demanding he apologize for it. And we were critical of Sheriff Sanders for giving in. He rescinded his endorsement of Frank DeRozier over attacks from a few online activists. And so it was interesting because I was responding to some of these attacks online, basically saying what I've been saying on the air today, which is even if you're the member of a minority group, that doesn't mean that you're immune from criticism for what you say and do. And on this show, I don't care if you're black, if you're white, if you're gay, if you're straight, if you have a disability, if you don't. If you are running for public office, you are going to get the same treatment from me. I'm going to be critical of extreme ideologies. And no, I'm not going to apologize for it. And no, I'm not going to have people who don't know me suggest online that I'm making fun of someone for a disability that I didn't even know they had. And then what, force some sort of apology or mea culpa out of me? Absolutely not. That's not something you will ever hear me do on this show. Now, like I said to begin the show today, sometimes it's okay to be aware of how you make other people feel. Sometimes, and I imagine some people who commented on my post who did comment directly on the way that Jess was speaking in the post, now that they know that she has cerebral palsy, probably feel bad about what they said, but didn't know. I don't think there's anybody who commented on it knowing she has a disability, I'm going to make fun of her. But sometimes it's fine to understand and to get a little more context. That's good to know. That's good to know. That's something that I'll certainly keep in mind if I watch other videos of her and things that she has to say. But on this show, I'm never going to criticize someone based on identitarianism, based on their identity. It's always going to be about their words and their actions. And no, you're not going to guilt me into apologizing. So if you were hoping for one, I just made you watch 42 minutes of the show to be disappointed. All right. A couple political stories to get to. It's going to be a long show today, guys. Sorry, we have so much to get to. Did you see there was a shakeup in the race for governor? So Hillary Franz, and this happened, lickety split. It's fascinating to see how the party's the party structure makes everybody kind of coalesce. So Hillary Franz, who's the Democrat and Commissioner of Public Lands, she's been running for governor. And remember, she even said the statements about, because Bob Ferguson's running, obviously. And she had that tweet that I criticized her for, where it's like, I've been told every step of the way to sit back and wait my turn and wait for the men ahead of me to have theirs, no longer. Well, now that appears to be exactly what she's doing. So this past week, there was a kind of two headlines back to back. So Derek Kilmer, who's the congressman, a Democrat in the 6th Congressional District in Washington, announced that he wasn't going to be seeking re-election. And almost immediately, Hillary Franz announced she was leaving the race for governor, and now she's going to run for Derek Kilmer's seat. She said in a tweet, "From rising costs to abortion rights to the climate crisis, the challenges we face extend beyond the borders of our state. So must our solutions. I'm running for Congress to bring my vision for bold, transformative action to D.C. I'm honored to have Representative Derek Kilmer's support." So it's just funny how this happens, where it's 1 second you're making the pitch for why the governor's office is the right job for you, and then the next second you're like, and I'm running for Congress. Here's all the things that I'm going to do. But clearly this had been orchestrated behind the scenes, because no sooner does Derek Kilmer announce he's not running again than Hillary Franz announces she's running, and she has Derek Kilmer's endorsement. And now all of a sudden there's only 2 Democrats in the governor's race and not 3. And have I had Hillary Franz tell me this directly? No, but we know how these things work. And I think that Democrats are trying to consolidate to make sure that there isn't a situation where they divide the vote so much that you have, 2 Republicans, God forbid, in Washington go through. And so it looks like Hillary Franz is probably encouraged to enter the race for Congress. Now, whether Derek Kilmer was also part of that package deal and whether he's been promised something in return for giving Hillary Franz a place to land, I don't know. All of it, is one of the many reasons I just don't like party politics very much, because it's all this wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, and they're going to pick who they want the candidate to be, and then you've kind of got to fall in line. It's something we've talked about on the Republican side as well. So anyway, we will reach out again to Hillary Franz. It's so funny because I've interviewed Hillary Franz a billion times. When I was in mainstream news, I think I've had her on this show before. It's been a while. But as soon as she entered the race for governor, I was like persona non grata. It was like, oh, I can't talk to Brandi Kruse because I'm running as this progressive sort of foil to Bob Ferguson and I can't be on that show. That's how I feel. So maybe since she's running for Congress, it'll be a little bit different. Although one thing that I believe to be true, because I heard it from her directly, I think she lives in Magnolia. And it sounds like she has perhaps a vacation home out in the 6th Congressional District, which is on the coast. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be certainly something that comes up in the campaign, which is, are you really just a Seattleite? and you're a resident of the 6th Congressional District out of convenience, because it's not popular with folks. So anyway, in the context of that, I also wanted to chat with Jim Walsh, who's the chair of the Washington State Republican Party. He just went through his very first general election as the chair of the party. I wanted to have him on to talk about some of, I think, the misses for Republicans in the election last week. But of course, I had to bring up what's happening here with Hillary Franz and the shakeup in the governor's race. Jim Walsh, welcome back to Undivided.
Good to see you, Brandi. How you been?
I've been all right. Lots of news to ask you about in a relatively short period of time. We just talked about the fact that Hillary Franz dropped out of the race for governor. She's now running for Congress. This seems to me, at least, to be sort of an orchestrated effort to get her out of Bob Ferguson's way. Do you agree?
Yeah, her announcement came right on the heels of Derek Kilmer, the current Congress member, announcing that he was not going to run again. It looks like it was pretty well orchestrated between the two of them, and that's fine. It's not really grassrootsy genuine. I mean, this is something they've scripted, but that's okay. That's how they roll. And I think the more conservative candidates for that position in Congress are going to probably resonate a little more authentically with the people of that district.
Why do you say that?
Well, Hillary Franz is a dynamic woman. I mean, she's articulate, she's effective, but she's not really the 6th congressional district. She's a little Seattle, and she's a little progressive. The 6th is a blue collar place. It's a salt of the earth part of the state, and Derek Kilmer did a good job of representing it in D.C. Because he kept true to his roots. He grew up in the Port Angeles area. He grew up in the district. He knew the area. I'm not sure that Hillary is right there, but we'll see. We'll see what she does in the coming months as she runs for that Congress seat.
You said, well, it's not really grassroots, but I mean, Republicans have done something similar. I mean, when you look at the gubernatorial race, Dr. Raul Garcia dropped out and then switched his bid to a Senate run. So when we talk about the governor's race, I mean, is this the Democratic Party showing a little more discipline in trying to thin the herd before the primary?
Good point. And that is what the Democrat Party does well. They are more organized, and they do thin the herd, as you say, in an effective way. Got to give them their due. This is the part they do well. But does that end product in terms of political identity, does that really resonate with people? Is that authentic, or is that come off a little too well managed, too well stage managed? We'll see. We'll see what the next few months bring. But watch that 6th congressional. It has not been a Congress seat that's been in play in recent years, and I think it will be in the next year or so.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned some Republicans. I know Senator Drew McEwen is considering it strongly, and so certainly we'll be watching that. One more thing on this topic before we talk about what I actually wanted to have you on to talk about, which is the results of last week's election. Semi Bird was on our show not too long ago. It sounds like he feels a rift between maybe his supporters and what he is considering establishment Republicans. And I don't know if you watched the interview, but he's suggesting, at least to me, that he's not going to abide by a nominating process that you guys have planned. Does that concern you?
Short answer, no. Everyone can run their campaigns the way they want to run their campaigns. I believe that what the Republican Party is trying to do right now in this state, in our state, in Washington, is be a little bit like what you just talked about, a little more disciplined, as the other side has been traditionally. We can't force anybody to be part of that process, but we think it's a good process. And we think it's one in which the grassroots, the real people who want to see good change in our state, are going to be part of. I mean, it's going to be their voice. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not an establishment guy exactly. And I'm trying to bring more of a real people's voice to what the Republican Party does in Washington. And I think that our process, and that will include a state convention where we nominate a number of candidates, including governor, it's going to be a voice of the people. And that's what we want it to be. We want to show everyone in Washington that we are the voice of the people. We are the party that really listens and gives ordinary people the chance to say what they want. So I hope that Semi is part of that process. I invite him to be. He'll get a fair shake. Everyone running for public office will be heard and will have a moment to talk to the people. And I hope he'll participate in that. And I think he will. I hope he will. We'll see.
So that's forward-looking. Let's look back a little bit to last week. Your first general election campaign as the chair of the state party. How'd it go, Jim?
Mixed. It was mixed.
Yeah.
I think we're stinging from a couple of high-profile losses. I mean, we fell short in a couple of races. As you've told your viewers and everybody's been watching knows, we fell short in the city of Spokane, where Nadine Woodward, the mayor, was not reelected, and closer to heart to me, we lost Snohomish County Sheriff. Adam Fortney is a good man, and it is unfortunate that he fell short in that race to be reelected as sheriff in Snohomish. And I think as time goes forward, people will see that's unfortunate. He's a good man, and we really wanted to see him continue as sheriff in Snohomish. But aside from those couple of high-profile races, there is good news. I mean, there are green shoots, as economists say. The Republican Party, focused on some school board races, and we identified a couple of groups of school board races that we thought were significant, and we encouraged people to support and get active in. We didn't endorse exactly because these are nonpartisan races, and we want to be supportive, but we don't necessarily want to make it partisan. So we spotlighted, we supported, we didn't endorse. Of the first group of those school board races, we identified 36 races we thought were critical based on where in the state they were geographically, based on the individuals running. And looks like we're going to win about 32 of those 36, and we're very encouraged by that.
Yeah, that's a good. And so what are some of the school boards that folks will see those candidates sitting on in the new year?
Most notably on the west side of the state, Puyallup elected 3 very solid kids first people to their school board. And on the east side of the state, in the Meade school district, which is kind of suburban Spokane, likewise, 3 very solid kids first people were elected to their school board. In those 2 districts, the common sense conservatives, as we like to call them, are an instant majority on those school boards, and we will watch with good optimism how they run their school districts. And I think you're going to see good things in Puyallup and Meade. A couple of others that were significant. We had one in another suburban Spokane district where a good person was elected, and also down in the Vancouver area in the Evergreen School District, we got a very good constitutional conservative elected to the school board there. And really, these school board races are about the kids. They're about improving the performance of the schools in those areas on the core learning. I mean, reading, writing, math, and core sciences, and I think we're going to see good results. I hope we are. Yeah,
and Jim, I know you're tight on time because you're doing party business today, but just to recap on the 2 that you mentioned that were obviously disappointing. You mentioned the school board races. You didn't want to endorse because they're nonpartisan races. You didn't want to necessarily make it political, but the sheriff's race in Snohomish County was also a nonpartisan race. Democrats absolutely made it political. They were heavily involved in that race. What did Republicans do for Sheriff Fortney?
Well, we offered him the help we can offer. Good data for doorbelling, for targeted mailings and things like that. you know, we like Fortney, and I'm sorry we couldn't do more for him. He's a good man, but every candidate, every campaign is its own thing. I mean, that's the interesting part, Brandi, that I've seen as chair of the state Republican Party now for about 2 months or so. You can't push a string. I mean, individual candidates are going to run the campaigns they want to run, and that's as it should be. I mean, Republicans don't script candidates the way the other guys do. We let
Sorry, I
people,
want to read between the lines quick. Did he not want you involved?
you'd have to ask him. No, I think he wanted our support, and we offered it as we could. It was a nonpartisan race. I mean, we don't want to get in and Bigfoot and tell him how to run his campaign. I think he wanted our support, and we offered it as we could. But again, I mean, we're not the party that dictates to people how they should run. I mean, we are the band of brothers. I mean, we are the group that where we let in our candidates that we support, we let them do their thing. I mean, we let them run as they're going to run. We don't tell them what to say. We don't tell them what to do. We're there to support. When a candidate asks for a certain kind of help, whether it's data on voters in their area, whether it's fundraising help, we will offer that help as they ask for it. But we don't script people. We don't tell them how to run. And I think that's genuine. I think that allows our candidates, the candidates we support, to be who they are and speak truly to people, to voters. The downside is we don't tell people how to run. We don't tell people what to say. We don't offer them scripted talking points. And sometimes candidates like scripted talking points, and they prefer to be told what to say and what to do. That's just not how we play. It's not how we do it.
I mean, you don't have to be he doesn't have to be your puppet to be able to help the race, right? You guys can spend money getting the word out, helping with his name recognition, or spreading the message about what he's done for public safety without you putting your hand up his back and talking through his mouth for him, right?
And we do. But again, we don't tell candidates how to run.
Yeah.
We don't tell them what to say. We don't tell them what to do. We offer our support. And it's up to each candidate to decide what style of campaign they want to run. And, Adam Fortney had been through a lot.
Yeah.
He had survived a recall effort. He had an orchestrated anti-campaign against him. And I think that, unfortunately, the sort of cumulative effect of those criticisms and anti-arguments took hold. He's a good man. I hope he's not done in public service. I don't think he is. But we haven't heard the last of Adam Fortney. He's a good man, and I think he's got more to do. The people of Snohomish County are going to be watchful about what their new sheriff brings to the table. And I hope that she is an effective public servant and an effective law enforcement officer. I hope she is, and let's hope for the best there, Brandi. I am looking forward to what Fortney does next. He's a good man, and I don't think he's finished in public service in Washington.
Yeah, I share those sentiments. Let's end with this. There's this thought that Eastern Washington's sort of your territory, and the Democrats get the other side of the Cascades. Mayor Woodward lost, not only to any Democrat, to an Inslee appointee, someone who is, by all accounts, fairly extreme for Spokane voters. What happened?
Oh, yeah, there was a lot going on there, Brandi. The city of Spokane is kind of a blue dot in the middle of a red part of the state. It's a city. And it votes progressively, as some urban areas do, many urban areas do. There was a lot going on in that mayor's race. I think that it is not indicative of the whole direction of Eastern Washington. I don't think it's indicative of the sentiments of the people of Eastern Washington. But I think that the incoming mayor ran a good campaign. I think she is a she's a seasoned professional politician, and she benefited from running a well-orchestrated campaign. I think her attacks on the outgoing mayor were nasty, but they were effective, and we have to grant that the incoming mayor knew what she was doing, and she ran an effective campaign. But I don't think it is a bellwether to how Eastern Washington is and what its values are. I think it was an efficient, well-run campaign, and we have to give credit to the incoming mayor. She did a good job.
Yeah, let's hope it's not a bellwether. And hey, Lisa Brown, you run enough political campaigns, you're bound to win one of them. But, you know, it is your guys' job to have effective, efficient, well-run campaigns. So let's hope that that's the case for 2024. Jim Walsh, I took way more of your time than we told you we were going to. Thank you very much for being here. We'll have you back on soon.
It's always good to talk to you, Brandi. Have a great time.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's one thing to... Look, we just talked on the show yesterday about how I don't want these nasty, personal, vitriolic campaigns where the parties are coming in and vilifying people. But when you look what happened up with Sheriff Adam Fortney, I mean, and, you know, this kind of almost hands-off like, oh, we'll let Adam do Adam, which is great. Sheriff Fortney probably wouldn't have accepted a lot of direction from the party anyway, because I just don't think that's how he is. But I mean, when you have Jim Walsh saying, well, we're not going to do talking points for them. It's like, okay, but what are you going to do that's different than what you have been doing? Because what Democrats are doing is working. What the Republican Party has done has not been working. So I don't know. It's not enough just to be like, well, I mean, we offered what we could offer. No, it's like, what are you going to do then? How are you going to improve outcomes? And one of the things that I think I struggle with is this, and there was this debate happening online I saw yesterday about, well, is the Republican Party not involved enough in nonpartisan races? Democrats clearly have their preferred candidates, even in a quote-unquote nonpartisan race. So do Republicans need to go hard even when someone is not on the ballot as a Republican? I made this the topic of our daily subscriber poll question. I asked, should political parties be prohibited from spending money in nonpartisan races, such as campaigns for school board and city council seats? And the reason I asked it that way is I wanted it to be kind of a definitive question. And you guys, most people are saying yes, although our friend Steve on Patreon said, well, that's just, the premise of your question is unconstitutional because contributing to campaigns is speech, and so that would be limiting speech. And I get it. Just ignore whether people would challenge any sort of prohibition. Ignore any sort of legalities of it. I think I'm just kind of considering, would you prefer that parties don't get involved or can't get involved in nonpartisan races? Sally said there should not be any funds or endorsements from local, state, national parties themselves in nonpartisan races unless it is acknowledged by the candidate. Might as well get the truth out there. Many voters can read between the lines and tell what party a candidate prefers anyway. Too many people put party over policies and will toe the party line. Daniel says, personally wish big PACs and party money would be out of politics and only individual contributions within that jurisdiction would be allowed. Harold says they should stay out of these nonpartisan races, but how do you make that stick? That's a good question. On locals, CND Voss says, this is a tough one. I want to say yes out of my deep distrust of both major political parties. However, I say no because of the First Amendment and rights of free speech. Topping off my indecision are the stories of how the names of individual donors are being used without the person's knowledge to funnel cash to candidates by who knows. It's happening on both sides. So I guess the issue for me is if we say no, then how do we ensure parties or other bad actors aren't hiding their donations in this or some other way? All right. Thank you for your questions and your comments per the usual, or your voting rather. Okay, before we get to, do we have time for national? How about we get into one national story just because it's an update to something we did yesterday. But first, Thursday, 3 p.m. This Thursday, 2 days from today, 3 p.m., our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital, they're doing their final free webinar of the year. If you are just starting to plan for retirement or you're already almost there, you need to make sure that your portfolio, all you've saved, how hard you've worked for a good retirement, that it is protected against risk.
We think the world is going insane. We think that the world is propped up on all kinds of, we don't think, we know, propped up printed money. And you're playing a game that has to end badly, right? Now, when it ends, when you hear all these prognosticators financially talking about when it ends, it kind of reminds me of when God's coming back. Nobody knows, right? But what it does mean is that you need a portfolio that can do two things. It can keep up with inflation and not get you buried. But also, when the inevitability of living and perpetuating an economy on printed money, when that inevitability comes to the fore, you need a portfolio that can stand up against anything, right?
Yeah, and look, you guys work really hard. I want each of you to have a fantastic retirement. So please take advantage of this opportunity. It is absolutely free. You can learn how Bulwark's risk management strategy and their active management is protecting retirement portfolios against loss as we speak. Again, it's the final live webinar of the year. It's this Thursday, November 16th, 3 p.m. Space is limited, although it is free. It fills up fast, so reserve now. KnowYourRiskRadio.com. KnowYourRiskRadio.com. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Okay, one quick national story, because we're long. Everybody's like, don't apologize for going long, but I respect your lunch hour. So we talked on the show yesterday, which was actually a clip that made me laugh. Down in San Francisco, they're having the APEC conference. You've got Xi Jinping from China coming in, all these dignitaries. And of course, they did in San Francisco what they did in Seattle before the MLB All-Star game. They cleaned it up. Apparently, they can only muster the political will to clean up the homeless encampments and sweep away the drug users and beautify our downtowns if important people are coming to town, because we're not important enough to do that for. So anyway, Gavin Newsom had said yesterday in what might be one of my favorite clips of the year that he's like, people say we're just cleaning up this for important people. That's true. I was like, and I gave him some credit because at least they were honest about it, right? At least they were honest about it. Well, he has a new line. He says, what was his, do we have the video from Newsom? Let's get to the video first. Okay, go ahead.
Anytime you put on an event, by definition, you have people over your house.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, no.
Nicole.
Oh, man.
Is it just short?
I was having editing issues today, and so that was probably a victim of it.
Nicole's fine.
Anyway, he says
that if you have people over your house, you clean up.
You clean
up your house. Yeah, okay. I also refuse personally to live in a dangerous pigsty. So I also clean up for myself. So what you're saying is it's not worthy of cleaning up if it's just you or maybe your neighbors or something over, but if you have special guests from out of town, just stupid. But I will also say, just because you clean things up doesn't negate the problems, doesn't make all the issues disappear. And there was a Czech news crew that found this out the hard way. They were in San Francisco covering APEC, and they were robbed at gunpoint while filming in this really notable, iconic spot in San Francisco. So again, you can sweep the drug users, you can sweep the homeless tents, and you can make Xi Jinping or the Czech news crew believe that it's safe and everything's clean and pristine. But we all know that that doesn't change the actual root cause of the problem. So, looks like all these West Coast cities, they just take a page out of each other's playbook. Okay, we'll skip past the story that we've kicked off for 2 days now. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. If you're thinking about selling your home, there are a million real estate agents out there. You know that. You see them all over the place. Billboards, buses, bus stops, whatever it is. But make sure, especially in today's economy with the market the way it is, that you choose a real estate agent who's been doing it for a long time, who's been through the ups and downs of the market, and who's made it through. That tells you that they know what they're doing. Wes Jones with Wes Jones and Associates has been doing this for a long time in our area. King, Snohomish, Pierce County. And he says that, he can understand why people might be hesitant to list their home right now, but sometimes you just don't have a choice. And he said, despite some of the issues with the economy, home prices in our area are still tracking upward.
We should be experiencing not necessarily a crash, but we should be seeing a reduction in purchase price. When you have interest rates jump up by nearly 40% in over a 12-month time span, that should be compressing pricing, but we're actually seeing the opposite. Prices have come up about 5% since the beginning of the year. And overall transaction count is down, just meaning less houses overall are selling, but they're still selling pretty quickly because there's been a lot of pent-up demand, over time. So, it's actually going pretty well, but in general, there are not enough homes on the market to meet demand.
Yeah. So the very first thing you should do, sellwithwest.com, sellwithwest.com. If you are considering putting your home on the market, reach out to Wes Jones, ask him for a free market analysis. Just tell him, hey, here's where I live. Here's my house. Here's the address. How well do you think this will do? Is my home well positioned to do well when it hits the market? He's also going to make sure that their team, they have an innovative marketing strategy, that it is tip-top shape, looking good when it hits the market. And you can also plug in your address at sellwithwest.com and use their home value calculator. It can tell you how much your home is worth. It might be worth more than you think. Sellwithwest.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, questions and comments from the live stream. Bill Biz with a $20 super chat. Talking about the exclusive we did off the top of the show about this pushback from a group of alums of Shorewood High School to reinstitute their old high school mascot name. Bill Biz says, we need to get back to a habit of ridiculing the idiocy concerning renaming anything. Where are the priorities? Who has time for this? And that is a good point. As Nicole pointed out, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per school district on this for school districts that, because of this 2021 law, have to, or I guess want to, change their name. And then, meanwhile, we have school district cutting programs for kids. And it's like, who has the time, given what's going on in our education system, and who has the money? Well, taxpayers, right? They don't care. It's not their money. Mo Sterling says she needs to be on the school board, talking about Anna, who we had on, who's an alum of the school, who's just awesome. I really appreciated the way that she talked about this issue. Matthew Cook says Florida State kept the Seminoles name by opening a $40 million Seminole museum with the tribe's blessing on campus. Nice trade-off for all the revenue from merchandise. Yeah, that's a one way around it. Diana Manning says, Nicole, you are spot on. This is woke saviorhood versus actually talking to the appropriate tribe. Checking the virtue box is more important. Brandon says, change your mascot, win a prize, sponsored by Washington taxpayers. Two Ladies Midwest Adventure. Nicole, what are you drinking? We need more people to get some now, too.
I was riled up today.
Yeah, you were really sassy today.
Oh, well, you know, this one has me going.
It is a good story.
I don't like making something out of nothing. Instead, educate kids.
Except when somebody makes something out of nothing, we get to make it into a 22-minute segment on our show to teach people lessons. On the Olympia School Board, and me being accused of attacking someone for their disability, as if that's ever something I would actually do, Rick Johnson says, you never hear anyone on the liberal left apologize for anything, even when they know they're wrong. Enough apologies not warranted in these cases. Yeah, that's why we didn't give one. Mm-hmm. But it's about training. I'm not saying like mind manipulation, but it's about giving you like the courage to just not care and to not apologize. Like, and I'm sorry, I like Sheriff Derek Sanders, but he rescinded his endorsement of this woman's opponent under pressure from these same activists. So it happens, and he's a really reasonable, tough, common sense guy, and he's like, it's not worth it. It is worth it.
Right.
Because every time you give in, it empowers them to continue to do this, to try to get people off the hook when there's valid criticism there by suggesting, oh, you're criticizing them because they're black. You're criticizing them because they're disabled. You're criticizing them because they're a woman. You're criticizing them because they're transgender. No, we can criticize someone who's part of a minority group based on the stupidity of their ideas.
Right.
And people of all backgrounds can have stupid ideas.
And we have to remember, online people, it feels like a lot of people. It's a very small group of people. And Alicia Perkins, our friend, who's been obviously very on top of the Olympia School Board races, she was just panicked last night. She's like, make sure Brandi knows it's the same people. It's the same people.
She didn't want me to apologize.
She did not want you to apologize because
Alicia,
she said this is ridiculous that they do this every time they find things to attack like this and get people to apologize like Sanders. So.
Alicia, do you not know us by now? Do you not know me by now? I'm not opposed to apologizing. I've apologized for things before, usually a mistake or an error I made. I'm not apologizing when I didn't do anything wrong, and you're not going to guilt me into it. Yeah. All right, one more comment. Let's get to one more. Sergeant Pickles said, well, we'll do two more. Changing our election system to something like ranked choice is the only way to eliminate the duopoly. The spoiler effect is the single biggest flaw in elections. I have my qualms with ranked choice. I'm not completely opposed to it, but I think that the system, there's different types of ranked choice and different ways that it's instituted. And so I think it tends to benefit Democrats. It's a criticism I've heard. I think there's a reason for that. But I agree I would like some sort of way to eliminate the duopoly. I honestly would like to do away with putting political parties on ballots at all. Like, you can run as something, you can put it out there that that's what you are, you can get help from that party, but when your name's on the ballot, you just look like the guy underneath you, and people are going to have to do research.
I like it.
Let's see, TZ Burton talking about Jim Walsh in our interview and the mayor's race in Spokane being lost by the Republican. TZ Burton says that is a big fail. We lost a red city to a Seattle Democrat. Homeless, drug use, crime. Welcome to Spokane. And I do agree with Jim Walsh that Spokane isn't a red city. It's purple at best, but it's getting bluer by the day. And I think Todd Welch said in the comments, why is Brandi so surprised that Lisa Brown won? You know, she was a state lawmaker from that area. Because I think that given how Spokane voters voted on some other things related to crime and public safety, it seems really counter to me that they would want the woman who was in charge of commerce under Jay Inslee, who I think was rightfully criticized for handing out COVID funds to extremist groups, who was rightfully criticized for how her agency was dealing with encampments on state right-of-ways. It just seemed counter to me that that's the Democrat that they would choose. Okay, let's see here. Before we get to our closing sanity check, I've been talking about my success on the East Side Weight Loss Clinic plan. I love it because I have so many friends on the program now, and people I've met at various events, and they'll always come up to me. And I had one texting me the other day about almost just, hey, I'm 8 days in. How was it for you at 8 days? And so I love this kind of community that we have forming of people who have started the East Side Weight Loss Clinic program and are seeing fantastic results, but also, and as with any weight loss program, it's not easy. It is not magic. I think Nicole can attest to that. It's not magic. There's some days where I'm like, oh man, this is hard. And there's some days where I'm like, I love it. It's great. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. You do have to commit to it, but I'll tell you, if you commit to it, it works. I lost 30 pounds in about 2 months on the program. I started it roughly a year ago, and it has been something that I've been able to fit into my life, into ups and downs, into vacations, into holidays. And I think that's what you really want from a program when you decide, is this just another yo-yo diet, or is this something that can change my life forever? So if you've been considering it, eastsideweightlossclinic.com, eastsideweightlossclinic.com, schedule a free 15-minute consultation with Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team. Ask him all the questions you have to see if the program is right for you before you commit. But I'm telling you, if you've been thinking about it, there is no good time to start a new weight loss journey. The best time is right now. All right. Sheriff Susie, as she says she wants to be referred to when she takes office in Snohomish County, says that she does not think that Sheriff Adam Fortney is racist, despite what he might claim. Let's get to it in our closing sanity check. So, of course, we talked a lot about the race up in Snohomish County and how Sheriff Adam Fortney was the subject of nasty personal attacks, tying him to the Proud Boys because there was a Proud Boys rally in the county one time while he was sheriff, and somehow he's responsible for that. There were claims from Democrats that he was a white supremacist. And so it was really the politics of personal destruction. And it's interesting, there's this Como News article, and I don't think the interview has dropped yet, but it's Chris Daniels, and he's having a conversation with the new sheriff-elect, Susanna Johnson, who says she wants to be called Sheriff Susie. The headline, Snohomish County Sheriff-elect claims victory, refutes claims from opponent. So the article reads in part, the sheriff had made headlines talking about Adam Fortney in recent years for declaring he wouldn't enforce stay-at-home orders and for reinstating a pair of fired deputies. He admitted defeat over the weekend, but also wrote in a social media post, quote, my opponent won this race by convincing enough of our public that I am a racist. So in response to that, Susanna Johnson, the sheriff-elect, said, I'm sorry that was written, referring to Adam Fortney's post. That's not the case. Of course, she said, I never said those words. I would not say those words. The divisiveness doesn't help the community at all. And look, like what we said on the show yesterday, it is not about those words coming out of her mouth. It's about her refusal to defend a Navy veteran, a 27-year veteran of law enforcement, when he was subjected to, on her behalf, a vicious character assassination. Here she's saying after the election, well, I don't think that. I would never say that. Suggesting she doesn't think he's a racist. Well, then why did you let, for months on end, people campaigning on your behalf people spending money to get you elected, why did you let them say it without pushing back? There is nothing that would stop you from speaking out on behalf of Sheriff Fortney, who again is a fellow member of law enforcement, something I would hope that you would value, who has an impeccable record of service for 27 years with Snohomish County. There was nothing stopping you. If you're really concerned about the divisive nature of politics, if you really believe what you say when you tell Como News the divisiveness doesn't help the community at all, if you really believed that, then you wouldn't have let attacks against Adam Fortney done on your behalf go by without saying something about it. All right, that has been today's episode of Undivided. Thank you for being here. A little long today. Thank you for your commitment to giving Common Sense a comeback. If you have not signed up to support the show already, help us continue this mission and this movement to give Common Sense a comeback for just $5 a month. Think of all the things you spend $5 on. Help us save the state that we all love for just $5 a month.
Help us, help you.
Help us, help you. Good one, Nicole. UndividedPod.com, UndividedPod.com. We'll see you back in the live show tomorrow at noon.